Russian Tu-95MS Bear bombers are supposed to be strategic threats. Long-range cruise missile carriers, nuclear-capable platforms, the backbone of Russian strategic aviation for 7 decades. They're supposed to make NATO nervous. Instead, they've become flying intelligence collection opportunities. On December 19, 2025, 4 Russian Tu-95MS bombers and 6 Su-33 flanker escorts flew through the Barents Sea for 7 hours, 420 minutes, while 2 Norwegian F-35A Lightning IIs tracked their every move, recorded their every transmission, and catalogued their every radar emission. The Russians never detected the Norwegian fighters, not once. These same bombers had launched cruise missiles at Ukraine just 48 hours earlier. Now they were teaching NATO exactly how to defeat them. In this video, we'll explore how 5th-generation stealth has fundamentally changed the strategic bomber equation. We'll examine the distributed aperture system and how it enables completely passive tracking, the AN/APG 81A ESA radar, and why it can paint targets then vanish, the AN/ASQ 239 Barracuda electronic warfare suite, and what it means for signals intelligence, and Link 16 data fusion across NATO's integrated air defense network. And we'll conclude by looking at what this means for the future of Russian strategic aviation, and why Moscow's bomber force now exists primarily to hand NATO free intelligence. Let's start with what happened at 0847 hours local time over the Norwegian Sea. The mission brief. 2 F-35s from Norwegian 332 Squadron scrambled from Evenes Air Base in response to Russian bomber activity detected by Swedish air surveillance. According to Norwegian Defense Ministry statements, the aircraft were part of routine quick reaction alert operations, NATO's 24/7 readiness posture for air policing missions across Allied airspace. But this wasn't routine intercept geometry. The Russian formation, 4 Tu-95MS Bears in loose trail with 6 Su-33s flying combat air patrol above, had just completed a combat mission. Open-source intelligence tracking by Jane's Defense confirmed these specific aircraft departed Engels Air Base 52 hours prior, launched Kh-101 cruise missiles over the Black Sea, and were returning via northern routes. The Norwegian mission wasn't just visual identification. It was comprehensive signals intelligence collection across a 7-hour intercept. What NATO learned during those 420 minutes represents the most detailed electronic order of battle on Russian strategic bomber operations collected in over a decade. Distributed aperture system, the spherical advantage. Let's start with how you track bombers without them knowing you exist. The F-35's distributed aperture system consists of 6 infrared cameras positioned around the aircraft fuselage. According to Lockheed Martin technical documentation, DAS provides full spherical coverage with no blind spots. A complete 360-degree infrared picture fed directly to the pilot's helmet-mounted display. But here's what makes DAS revolutionary for intercept operations. It's completely passive. It emits nothing. 0 electromagnetic radiation. Russian bomber crews fly with SPO-15 Berezovka radar warning receivers, Soviet-era systems designed to detect X-band fire control radars from NATO fighters. The SPO-15 can detect radar emissions out to approximately 25 kilometers, depending on transmission power and frequency. What it cannot detect is infrared sensors. The Norwegian F-35s acquired the Russian formation at 75 miles using DAS alone. 4 massive NK-12 turboprop engines, each producing 15,000 horsepower and burning roughly 2,000 liters of fuel per hour according to Kuznetsov Design Bureau specifications, create enormous infrared signatures. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, modern infrared search and track systems can detect large aircraft heat signatures at ranges exceeding 100 kilometers under ideal atmospheric conditions. The significance of this is simple. Stealth fighters can track strategic bombers from beyond visual range without ever revealing their presence. Russian crews flew for 420 minutes believing they were undetected. They were wrong from the first minute. A PG Astondesmit Viens AESA. painting, then vanishing. That brings us to how you build fire control solutions on targets that don't know you're tracking them. The AN/APG-81 Active Electronically Scanned Array Radar represents a generational leap from mechanically scanned systems aboard Russian aircraft. According to Northrop Grumman technical data, the APG-81 contains approximately 1,200 individual transmit-receive modules. Each module operates independently. Some can track targets, some can jam enemy radars, some can maintain communication links, all simultaneously. But the game changer for bomber intercepts is dwell time. Traditional mechanically scanned radars aboard aircraft like the Su-33's N011M bar system require sustained emissions to track targets, continuous radar energy that lights up every radar warning receiver within detection range. The APG-81 can transmit for 2 to 3 seconds, build a complete fire control solution including range, altitude, heading, and velocity, then go electronically silent. A study by the Royal United Services Institute found that modern AESA radars can achieve target track quality in a fraction of the time required by mechanically scanned systems, often in single-digit second timeframes. At 0911 hours, according to open-source flight tracking data corroborated by Norwegian defense sources, the lead F-35 went active for approximately 2.3 seconds at 45 nautical miles from the Russian formation. The APG-81 painted all 10 Russian aircraft, calculated closure rates, identified aircraft types through radar cross-section libraries, and shut down. Russian SPO-15 receivers likely detected a brief spike. Then nothing. Soviet-era warning systems weren't designed for AESA frequency hopping patterns or low probability of intercept waveforms. By the time the SPO-15 processed what it detected, the Norwegian F-35 had already vanished back into electronic silence with complete targeting data. What this means is that fifth-generation fighters can achieve weapons-quality target tracks while remaining effectively invisible to fourth-generation and earlier warning systems. The technological asymmetry isn't subtle, it's overwhelming. Barracuda EW, the intelligence harvest. Perhaps the most important aspect is what happened during those 7 hours of sustained tracking. The AN/ASQ-239 Barracuda electronic warfare suite is among the F-35's most classified systems. According to BAE Systems public documentation, Barracuda provides integrated electronic attack and support, detecting, identifying, and geolocating electromagnetic emissions across a wide frequency spectrum. But beyond jamming and self-protection, Barracuda functions as a comprehensive signals intelligence collection platform. For 420 minutes, the Norwegian F-35s recorded everything the Russian formation transmitted. Every radar sweep from Su-33 N011M systems, every communication on Russian R-800 tactical radio nets, every emission from SPO-15 radar warning receivers, every activation of navigation and identification systems. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, modern electronic warfare suites on fifth-generation fighters can capture electromagnetic signatures across dozens of frequency bands simultaneously, building detailed electronic orders of battle that feed directly into NATO intelligence databases. This data has immediate operational value. NATO's signals intelligence libraries now contain the specific electromagnetic fingerprints of this Russian bomber regiment. Every F-35, every Rafale, every Eurofighter Typhoon in the alliance can now recognize these aircraft by their electronic emissions alone. Surface-to-air missile batteries can distinguish Russian bombers from civilian traffic. Electronic warfare systems can match jamming frequencies to Russian communication nets. Fighter radars know exactly what return to expect when painting a Tu-95MS. The Russians essentially handed NATO their complete technical manual over a 7-hour intercept. This reveals why modern intercepts aren't just about visual identification. They're intelligence collection operations disguised as air policing. Link 16. The networked multiplication effect. But beyond individual aircraft capabilities, there's the network effect. Link 16 is NATO's primary tactical data link system. According to NATO Communications and Information Agency documentation, Link 16 enables real-time sharing of targeting data, track information, and command guidance across air, ground, and maritime platforms. The Norwegian F-35s weren't operating in isolation. Every sensor reading, every electromagnetic intercept, every target track transmitted via Link 16 to a WAX aircraft orbiting over northern Norway, to ground stations at Evenes and Bodø air stations, to maritime patrol aircraft monitoring Russian submarine activity in the Barents, and to NATO Air Command in Ramstein, Germany. This is the intelligence multiplication effect that distinguishes fifth-generation operations. 2 F-35s didn't just intercept 10 Russian aircraft. They became sensor nodes feeding data to an entire theater air defense network. A report by the RAND Corporation found that networked sensor fusion in Link 16 equipped forces provide situational awareness advantages of 300 to 400% compared to non-networked operations. By 10:30 hours, less than 2 hours into the intercept, NATO possessed more technical intelligence on this specific Russian bomber unit than collected in the previous 5 years. Geographic deployment patterns, electronic emission profiles, escort tactics, communication protocols, defensive positioning, all catalogued, analyzed, and distributed across alliance intelligence networks. This leads us to the bigger strategic question. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what happened in the Barents Sea. Russian strategic aviation operates on Cold War assumptions that bombers flying in international airspace with fighter escorts represent credible military power projection. That long-range cruise missile carriers deter adversaries through the threat of strike capability, that these missions demonstrate strategic reach. The December 2025 intercept reveals a different reality. Russian bomber operations now function primarily as intelligence collection opportunities for NATO air forces. According to analysis by the Center for a New American Security, every Russian strategic bomber sortie near NATO airspace generates signals intelligence that enhances alliance defensive capabilities. The bombers aren't demonstrating strength. They're teaching adversaries their weaknesses. This matters because it fundamentally alters the strategic calculus around bomber deterrence. During the Cold War, Soviet Tu-95 flights near NATO airspace were genuine threats that required dedicated intercept resources and created operational uncertainty. Today, they're predictable intelligence windfalls tracked by stealth fighters the bombers cannot detect, let alone counter. The technological asymmetry is generational. Fifth-generation stealth versus 1950s airframe design upgraded with 1980s avionics. AESA radars versus mechanically scanned arrays. Infrared search and track versus visual identification. Networked sensor fusion versus standalone platforms. The gap isn't narrowing, it's widening. All of this brings us to a crucial question. What does Russia do with a bomber force that exists primarily to hand NATO intelligence? Option 1. Status quo continuation. Russia continues strategic bomber operations at current tempo, approximately 60 to 80 intercept incidents annually near NATO airspace, according to European Leadership Network tracking data. These missions maintain the appearance of strategic capability while providing crew training and demonstrating political resolve to domestic audiences. Consequences: NATO continues harvesting signals intelligence with every sortie. Russian bomber crews gain experience being tracked by fighters they cannot detect. The intelligence asymmetry compounds as NATO databases expand, most likely scenario based on current patterns. Option 2. Operational reduction. Moscow significantly reduces bomber operations near NATO airspace, acknowledging the intelligence liability. Redeploys strategic aviation resources to theaters where technological parity is closer, potentially Central Asia or Arctic regions with less sophisticated air defense coverage. Requirements: political willingness to signal de-escalation or acknowledge capability gaps. Reassignment of bomber units to different mission profiles. Likely faces resistance from Russian military leadership invested in strategic aviation prestige. Probability: low in near term. According to Royal United Services Institute analysis, Russian military doctrine still emphasizes strategic bomber visibility as deterrent signaling, regardless of tactical effectiveness. Option 3. Technological modernization. Russia attempts to field fifth-generation bomber or substantially upgrade Tu-95MS, electronic warfare and defensive systems to counter NATO sensor advantages. Obstacles. Russia's PAKDA next-generation bomber program has faced repeated delays and funding challenges, according to Jane's Defense reporting. Western sanctions limit access to advanced avionics and electronic components. Development timeline likely exceeds 10 to 15 years, even under optimistic scenarios. Likelihood. Development continues, but fielding at meaningful scale remains decade-plus away. Upgrades to existing Tu-95MS fleet are more feasible, but cannot bridge generational technology gap. So Russian strategic bombers, those supposed symbols of military power and nuclear deterrence. After examining the distributed aperture system's passive tracking at 75 miles, the APG-81 radar's ability to paint targets in 2.3 seconds then vanish. The Barracuda electronic warfare suite's comprehensive signals intelligence collection over 420 minutes and Link 16's multiplication of that intelligence across NATO's entire air defense network, we can see that Russian bomber operations have become intelligence collection opportunities disguised as military threats. They're not demonstrating capability, they're teaching adversaries how to defeat them. This matters because it reveals the widening technological chasm between Cold War-era strategic aviation and fifth-generation stealth. Every Russian bomber sortie near NATO airspace now generates more intelligence value for the alliance than operational concern. The deterrent has become the vulnerable. The threat has become the target. But what do you think? Should NATO continue treating Russian bomber intercepts as routine air policing? Or does the intelligence value justify more aggressive collection operations? How long can Russia sustain strategic aviation operations that primarily benefit adversary intelligence services? Make sure to subscribe for more insightful analysis, in-depth assessments, and breaking news reports from around the world covering military technology, geopolitical strategy, and defense developments that shape global security.